So today we're going to be presenting the milestone presentation regarding public transportation issues. Just for the Systematica team to know, we are being joined here by the city mayor, by Tatiana, that is overseeing economic aspects, by the city council president, Dimitro Falco, and also by Andrei Simbal, head of the architects of Mykolaiv. There might be other members of the local working group that may be joining us while we keep on presenting, as they have also been invited. So just for our colleagues in Mykolaiv to know, the Systematica team is going to be presenting today the conclusions of their critical analysis regarding transportation aspects on the city before the war began. So they are going to be bringing out criticalities and potentialities that we need to then take into account when developing the future master plan scenarios for the public transport. They will also be presenting today successful case studies around the world from which they are taking specific elements that they will then be including in their proposal for public transportation when we restart with the work in September. Now, for our colleagues in Systematica, instead to know, we have been participating in parallel with the local team in Mykolaiv on meetings in which our vision aspects are being discussed, as well as the SWOT analysis that we had put together on the previous stage. So the local working group has been working very hard on discussing all of the general elements that we laid down on the vision on the previous stage in order to be able to characterize them with effective problems that the city of Mykolaiv has. So that way we are able to structure the SWOT analysis as well as the vision, actions, and pillars specifically for the territory. So regarding that, if there is any aspects that the local team of Mykolaiv that is logged on here with us today would like to bring out or to mention for the Systematica team once they finish presenting their analysis so that they may take them into account, we would be happy to hear that, as they have not been present within the local working group discussions. I don't know if anybody from the Mykolaiv City Council or Mykolaiv City side would like to make comments before we begin. If that is not the case, then I can give the word over to the Systematica team, and then maybe we can have a discussion, questions, comments, or feedbacks once they finish their presentation. So Anaita, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna. Hello, everyone. This is Anahita from Systematica. Thanks for joining today. Just before I start, I would like to mention a quick note that for the part of benchmarking that comes after the analysis we started, it's still a work in progress, and it's really looking to firstly the accessibility strategies in different cities that we have selected through a process that we discussed with you during the capacity building workshop. For the port accessibility. So we will show those strategies and not the public transport strategies. So I'm going to share my screen. So if this is the first time you're joining the meeting, we are Systematica, a transportation planning and mobility engineering studio based in Milan. We have over 35 years of experience working on projects of different scales, from national and regional to urban mobility plans, mixed use master plans, and complex buildings around the globe. Our strategies are always multimodal and integrated mobility approach. In addition, we have a non-profit research foundation that works closely with us in most of our projects, and especially for the Mykolaiv Master Plan project that it's called Transform Transport Foundation. So jumping to the studies we've done, During the capacity building workshop that we did a couple of weeks ago, we showed a bit of opportunities and challenges that we believe the city of Mykolaiv is facing for different aspects of transport and mobility. Here, I would like to show again in detail studies that we have done, starting from the wide area analysis, going into understanding the city characteristics, morphology, and mobility behaviors, the main mobility hubs of the city, followed by in-depth analysis of different aspects of mobility in the city of Mykolaiv. I will show briefly the methodology that we discussed in the other meeting with you for selecting 6 cities as benchmarking cities that we will look into, and the type of studies that we are planning to do, both qualitative and quantitative for these cities, followed by our first studies for port accessibility strategies that these cities are implementing to improve the vehicular traffic in the city and deviate the traffic from the city center, which we believe is one of the aspects that concerns the city of Mykolaiv as well. So for the wide area analysis, we looked into very briefly policies and strategies that the EU is planning to implement regarding extension of European transport networks towards Ukraine and also the city of Mykolaiv. We looked into improvements in rail and road and water transport and defining core and comprehensive port, airport, and rail network of the country. Then we looked into the road network of Ukraine that is quite extensive. However, in terms of quality, 50% of the road doesn't meet the required standards, and the average highway speeds are 2 or 3 times lower than Western European countries. City of Mykolaiv is well connected with the rest of the city through these extensive networks of highways and primary roads. We looked into the national railway network of Ukraine. We know that Ukraine has one of the most extensive railway networks in Europe. It's 24,000 kilometers of rail, and 48% is electrified. And it serves 18 ports of the country, including the port of Mykolaiv. We know that there are 13 commercial ports in Ukraine, 12 sea terminals, and 4 main seaports that Mykolaiv is one of them. They are handling 78% of the freight and cargo handling of the country. More than 85% of grains are handled in these 4 major ports, and more than 95% of metal products are as well handled through these ports, including the port of Mykolaiv. So port is a quite important hub for the city and country's industry. So this is a closer look of the main ports of Ukraine, including the port of Mykolaiv. So to understand the city better, we look into the city population and trends of the population, comparing it with the country that is quite matching the country. We know that Ukraine is the 6th most populous city of Mykolaiv is the 6th most populous city of Ukraine. We took a closer look to the population density of the city, and we understood that 69% of the population lives within the urban area of the city, and 31% is the rural population. Looking at the available socioeconomic data, we know that there are 11 universities in Mykolaiv, making it a quite important city for the education and young people. We know that there are over 500,000 workforce available in the city of Mykolaiv, while the unemployment rate is before the war was almost 11.5%. We looked at the land uses of the city to understand that there is a high percentage of residential areas in the cities, while the city, especially close to the river, has a heavy presence of industrial zones that limit the access to the riverfront for the population. There is a high concentration of natural green areas that can be considered as a potential for the city and citizens. We looked at the points of interest and their density within the city of Mykolaiv. We know that 31% of these points of interest are leisure and services. They are mainly concentrated in the city center area, and moving out from the city towards the suburb, they decrease in number drastically. I said there is a heavy presence of educational centers in the city, so 10% of the total of the points of interest are educational centers, and 0.1% are historical areas. We took a closer look at the climate condition of the city to understand that the city during the winter months gets quite cold, and there is a presence of snow. These are aspects that we have to consider while defining strategies for pedestrians and cyclings. While for the rest of the seasons, especially during the summer, the temperature is quite agreeable for activities such as cycling and walking. We looked at the city elevation and slope maps to understand that most of the city centers and areas that the residents are located, it's quite flat and suitable for cycling. Look at the city road network and all the plans that we could have find from the previous studies that were done by the municipality to extend this network, and in some cases propose new bridges to improve connectivity through the port area. I'm going to show you more in detail the studies we've done in this regard. So these are a few images of the conditions of the highway roads that connect Mykolaiv to the rest of the Ukraine. So we looked at the port of Mykolaiv and the facilities that it has. We know that the port area is almost 70 includes almost 70 hectares in area, and is located mainly in two areas close to the city center in the north and further south. We know that there are the main roads and highways that connect the port to the rest of the Ukraine for freight are passing through the city center, and this causes lots of concerns regarding congestion air pollution, and traffic safety for citizens. So we studied more in detail access to the port area from different main locations in the city from Kiev to understand the roads that would be mainly used by trucks for accessing connecting Kiev to the port of Mykolaiv from Kherson and from Odessa. So again, as I mentioned, we are fully aware of the issue of these main roads passing through the city center of Mykolaiv. We took a closer look at the Mykolaiv International Airport. We know that unfortunately the airport is currently damaged by the war. However, we know from the statistics, previous statistics, that the airport could handle up to 22,000 passengers per year. The airport is quite close to the city center. It's only 13 kilometers in the north, accessible by car. However, no other modes, we could not identify any other modes of transport connecting the airport to the city. So we took a closer look of the before and unfortunately the current situation of the airport. So we took a closer look at the railway network of the city, which is quite extensive and reaches both port areas located closer to the city center and towards the south, closer to the sea. And we know that the railway network handles both passenger and freight. There are several stops that we have identified. However, we know that some of these stops might be, some of these stations might be disused stations at the moment. Doing isochron analysis for accessibility to these stations, to these railway stations, we could understand that 2.5% of the population lives in the vicinity of the proximity, 15 minutes by walk, proximity of the railway stations. So from the Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan studies that was done previously by the municipality, we took a closer look at the mobility behaviors and patterns in the city of Mykolaiv, especially the modal share. We know that the public transport is used in 45% of the movements. However, walking is also another important component for mobility. In Mykolaiv, 38% of the modal share is dedicated to walking. Cycling is very limited due to lack of infrastructure. And we are aware that the part of this modal share dedicated to public transport is because of the marshrutka as a sort of additional mode to the public transport. We know that men are more likely to use cars and women are more likely to travel by foot. We know that women are uncomfortable using cycling due to the lack of infrastructure, similar to the trend that it's available in the rest of the world. We know that the bicycle ownership is quite low, and per every 1,000 inhabitants, there are only 80 bicycles available. So we looked at patterns from transport model of the city as well, trying to understand the different number of trips that it's done by each mode of transport on daily basis. and trying to understand how freight is moving within the city. So we know that heavy trucks are responsible for 17% of the freight traffic, and then 13%, 14 almost percent is by medium trucks, and lighter trucks are responsible for 70% of the freight traffic in the city. So going back to the road network of the city, we know that at the moment there is no traffic limited zone or policies to regulate or limit the traffic within the city, especially for heavy vehicles. We know that the main local roads shown in yellow here are the ones that are used by this heavy traffic, connecting rest of the country to the port of the Mykolaiv. So we can see that the number of lanes available in the road network of the city, we can see that those major roads that connect to the port are the ones that have the highest number of lanes. We try to have a closer look at different typologies of roads to identify the pros and cons for each of them. I'm not going to go through everything, but I will just show very few examples. In case of international roads, we know that there are wide greenery available, and the ample spaces dedicated to vehicular lanes is an opportunity for reduction of the lane space and dedicate the space to micromobility and cycling lanes. However, this wide lanes allows for high speed. In this around these types of road, there are no active ground floor to encourage the use of bike walking or cycling. As I mentioned before, there are no cycling infrastructure available, no drop-off areas, and there is always safety concerns for pedestrians. And if passing the cyclists. So this is another example of the M14 road that we looked into. Same pros and cons applies. In case of national roads passing through the city center, we know again that most of the roads have greenery that can work as a buffer also for safety for pedestrians and cyclists, and ensure climate comfort for walking and cycling. However, we know again that this vehicular lanes are quite wide, allowing for high speed, no active ground floor, no cycling infrastructure, no street parking, and no dedicated drop-off. All of this causes some concerns for pedestrians and cyclists. In case of suburbs, however, there is no area dedicated to pedestrians or cyclists, and in some areas, the road pavements require maintenance. Going into local roads, we know that again, there is the presence of this green buffer and availability of space, especially deducting from the vehicular road to provide infrastructure for cyclists. We know that in some places, the pedestrian infrastructure and the sidewalks require maintenance. Again, there is a lack of active ground floor, which we believe would be a main component encouraging people to walk and cycle within the city. So similar to the national roads, the local ones in the suburb area, again, lack any kind of infrastructure for pedestrians or cyclists, and there would be main safety issues for them. Residential roads, again, there is no active ground floor, no cycling lanes, and no dedicated drop-off areas. However, again, we have the presence of the greenery, safety buffers, and possibility of adding cycling infrastructure to these road typologies around the city. In the suburb, however, the low traffic streets allowed for shared spaces, but in some areas, the lack of clearly defined pedestrian infrastructure might cause some safety issues for pedestrians. The road might require some maintenance in some of the areas in the cities, and there's always the lack of active ground floor. Then we looked at, we took a closer look at the Central Avenue, as we believe it's it's one of the main streets within the city center that has some traffic safety concerns. And at the same time, a lot of heavy vehicle traffic is passing through this road to connect to the port. There are no speed limits. So there is the concerns for safety. There are no dedicated drop-off areas for pedestrians, no cyclists. There is the presence of no cycling infrastructure, no active ground floor to encourage the walking and cycling. However, there is a wide green space in the central area that allows for the road redesign to provide dedicated lanes for cycling and micromobility. In general, the central location of the Central Avenue in the city makes it a suitable area to provide active ground floor in the future. So we took a closer look of how and in what frequency then there are crossing points or junctions and public transport stops. So every 216 meters, there is a crossing point, and the average distance for public transport stops is 370 meters. Both of them are making this road a suitable area for walking and cycling and having active ground floor activities. However, the concerns regarding heavy vehicle traffic and no speed limits should be taken into account. So we looked at the data provided regarding traffic safeties and surveys that were done previously for the city. So again, you can see that these major streets that connect to the port, connect the heavy traffic to the port, are among the ones with high traffic accidents. So very quickly, there are several challenges for the road network. Lack of bypass to divert the traffic from the city center, especially the heavy traffic. The bridges are in unsatisfactory conditions. There are a high number of traffic accidents, and the excessive width of the lanes allows for high speed. There are no traffic limited zones or speed limits within the city. There is a lack of cycling infrastructure and lack of active ground floor to encourage the shift towards more sustainable modes of transport. The opportunities is that the city is not car oriented, and only 15% of the modal share is for private car. The city has a strategic location in the road network of southern Ukraine, and there are bridges planned to connect the city and to these highways and divert the heavy vehicle traffic from the city center. So the excessive width that now allows for high speed can be reimagined and redesigned to allow more spaces for active mode of transport for cyclists and pedestrians. There is the possibility to create limited traffic zones, especially in areas that there would be, can anticipate a high presence of foot traffic. These wide traffic lanes can allow for providing dedicated lanes for public transport to improve the efficiency and reliability of public transport. There are underground passages and interchanges that are planned to improve traffic safety conditions. So looking into the public transport network of the Mykolaiv, we know that 45% of the modal share is for public transport. There are several new lanes and rerouting that already planned and proposed by the municipality according to the studies that were previously done. However, looking closely at the network density, we can identify areas within the city that are here marked by number 1, that are underserved by public transport. There are industrial areas that even though there would be a heavy presence of employees, is still very underserved, and basically no public transport access is provided. On the west side of the city and far from the city center, we know that the marshrutka is the only available mode of public transport. We know that central part is the area that has the most overlap of modes and routes of public transport, while in suburban area this decreases drastically. We took a closer look of different modes of transport. Looking at the tram, we know that there are 6 routes available. We know that the operational speed is low, and the tram is concentrated, is mainly in the city center. This low operation speed and frequency decreases the use of the tram by the citizens. Looking at the tram infrastructure, we know that the condition of the rolling stock and the infrastructure needs improvements. We know that the stops lack travel information that are necessary, and will encourage the use of the tram. More information such as timelines, timetables, map, and similar. We know that there is the lack of pedestrian crossings at the tram stops in several locations that causes safety concerns for pedestrians. And as you can see in 2 images. Then we look at the trolley buses. Again, trolley bus similar to the tram is mainly connecting the central part of the city, and towards the south and west, there are no lines or routes available. So looking at the infrastructure, we can see that some of the stops don't have shelter, map, or timetable. And the ones that have shelter, they lack maps and timetables that will encourage the use and facilitate the use for citizens. We know that vehicles need to be upgraded, and the rolling stock is quite, we know that there are no dedicated lanes and no proper drop-off areas for the stops in most of the routes. Buses are more extensive and reach the southern area that the tram and trolley buses don't go there. So similar to the trolley bus, we know that the bus stops lack travel information. We know that there are no dedicated lines to improve the frequency and speed of the buses and increase the reliability of the service. We know that the vehicles require upgrade, perhaps to more sustainable options. For the Marshrutka routes, they are much more extensive in compared to the other modes. There are 32 different routes connecting the different neighborhoods of the cities one to the other. We know that the infrastructure and the rolling stock needs upgrade. In some areas, especially in the suburb, the stops have no shelter, no sign, and no timetable available. The vehicles, similar to the other modes, require upgrade to more sustainable options. So to understand better the accessibility of the public transport for the population, we have carried out isochron analysis of 10 minutes walking accessibility from different stops for the population. And we know that tram is available only to 18% of the population within 10 minutes walking, and trolley bus to 13%. The bus is available to 22.5% of the population, and the Marshrutka is much more available, and 48% of the population can access a Marshrutka stop within 10 minutes walking. Carried out the same isochron analysis for the employees, we understood that 26% of the employees are located within 10 minutes walking of the tram stops, 17% within 5 minutes walking of trolley bus stops, 33% 5 minutes of 5 minutes walking from bus stops, and 62% from 5 minutes of Marshrutka stops. However, there are 30% of the employees that have no access to the public transport due to the fact that some areas of the port are not served by public transport, or public transport stops are quite far from them. So again, very quickly, the challenges for the public transport include limited coverage of tram and trolley buses, few connections between districts, significant overlap of routes that duplicate each other, especially for bus and Marshrutka, no dedicated lanes that negatively affects the service efficiency and reliability, poor condition of infrastructure and rolling stock and vehicles, low speeds for trolley bus and tram, low frequency in general, and in general public transport is not adapted to the groups with reduced mobility. And there is a lack of integrated ticketing system to encourage multimodality and use of several options at the same time. The main opportunities is the fact that the share of public transport is quite high in the modal share of the city. The proposed optimized network can, with electric solutions in the city plans, is among the opportunities for the future plans. There are projects for improving circular routes to improve accessibility within districts. There are proposals for mass rapid transit corridors to improve efficiency and reliability of the service. There is the possibility of creating a fare payment system that is convenient for all passengers. There is a possibility of proposing transport hubs to ensure efficient and multimodal connections within the city, especially in the key locations and areas. Mykolaiv has plans for using the waterways as a new public transport system, defining ferry connections. There is the possibility to provide on-demand services for low-demand areas, and the possibility to provide a unique platform or mobility as a service option that can improve the user experience and encourage the modal shift even further. So looking at the parking typologies of the city, we know that currently everything is on-street parking is the common typologies, and there are dedicated areas in some areas defined by signs and lanes, and some areas without. We know that there is no paid parking, no formal parking. Parking is quite chaotic, and sometimes this pocket parking interrupts the continuity of the sidewalks. However, based on the future policies that the city is planning to implement, we know that the city is planning to create a parking management system that would create a paid parking zones, especially in the city center. So again, the challenges I've already mentioned: no paid parking, irregular parking, chaotic and informal parking that decreases the quality of public realm. And the opportunities are planning implementation of the parking system, defining paid zones, especially in the city center, to encourage the shift towards a more sustainable use and decrease the vehicular traffic within the city center. There is a possibility of proposing park and ride system close to the mobility hubs and nodes to sustain and encourage the modal shift from car to public transport. We took a closer look at the public realm of Mykolaiv and current available infrastructure, including pedestrianized street and all the important squares, bridges, and parks that the city has. We looked at the tourist attractions that are all that are mainly located within the city center, and the universities and education centers as well. Looking closely at the pedestrian infrastructure, as I mentioned before, we know that there is a lack of active ground floor. The lack of pedestrian crossing in some areas of the cities causes concerns and safety issues. In some areas of the cities, sidewalks are narrow or require maintenance. However, we know that there is the Soborna Street, that is the wide pedestrian street on the city center with commercial activities on the ground floor. Looking at the main road, again, we know that close to the main road, there is the lack of sidewalks, and there is a lack of active ground floor. However, sidewalks are protected by the green buffer in most of the areas. However, in the suburban areas, there are some concerns due to lack of clear definition between sidewalks and roads. This is a closer look at the Soborna Street with commercial activities, presence of urban furniture, and greenery, which makes it an ideal location within the city center for walking and cycling. So challenges include lack of maintenance and low quality of pedestrian infrastructure, including intersections and sidewalk. There are some shared spaces with vehicular and pedestrians within the suburb area without speed limit signs or traffic signs. Sometimes sidewalks are interrupted by building entrances, and there are frequent road accidents on the crossing points. We know that walking is a second mode of transport in Mykolaiv, and the city intends to implement road safety measures to increase pedestrian safety. We know that there is a presence of a consolidated network of residential and local roads that can offer a great potential for introducing soft mobility network and active frontage, and implement the proximity city vision. In general, the public spaces in Mykolaiv are flexible and adaptable. We took a closer look at what was planned in the past. We are aware that these plans are not approved for the cycling. And we know that several recreational lanes along the riverfront are proposed as well. So currently, we know that there are some very few cyclists that move with vehicles in the same lanes. However, it causes concerns, and we know that there is no bike sharing system or infrastructure at the moment available in the city. So the opportunities for cycling can be, first of all, all the lanes that is planned by the city, and the estimations that cycling can increase from 1% of the modal share to 11%. There is the possibility to arrange for bike parkings, especially near points of interest, including university, education centers, commercial centers, and offices. The wide road infrastructure allows for implementation of cycling lanes in the future, and providing sharing schemes can really increase the use of bicycles in the city. So again, the bike network can be integrated with the public transport hubs, and bike and ride system can be proposed. There are possibilities to ensure safety strategies, especially with the availability of extensive green buffer within the city. It's noteworthy to mention that cycling in general can be a very efficient and low-cost solution to implement during the war and immediately after, especially from the lessons we learned during the crisis of the COVID pandemic, that cycling become a really efficient mode of transport during crisis. Looking at the sharing schemes, we know that there is the bike, scooter, and car sharing, different schemes of bike, scooter, and car sharing available in Ukraine. And we know that the Kike scooters Bolt is available also in Mykolaiv. The ride-hailing, there are different ride-hailing services available in the country, not yet in Mykolaiv. We know that there is the Kiev digital app that provides transport map, QR ticket, and currently operates as a wartime survival tool that reports airstrikes to the citizens. We know that, as I mentioned, cycling can be an effective mode of transport, and there are NGOs and nonprofit associations that try to source and send bikes to the people in different Ukrainian cities. We are not aware if they provide any for citizens of Mykolaiv. So as we can see, the number of charging stations in the country are increasing, as well as the share of electric vehicles, sale of electric vehicles, similar with the trends in other parts of the world. We know that there are 32 charging stations in the city, 18 EV parkings. Some of them include valet parking, and there are 19 public charging stations. So there are several options available within the city of Mykolaiv. For urban logistics, we know that there are different options available with automated parcel lockers in different areas of the city, especially in the city center, and pickup points and consolidation centers in the city center that are part of the solutions that would really reduce the presence of heavy vehicles and delivery trucks, and improve the overall congestion issues and traffic issues of the city. So that was the first part of the analysis, done mainly to understand the current situation in terms of transport and mobility of the city. So we're going to carry out a benchmarking analysis that will be done till the end of this phase for the upcoming two presentations in September and December. We already shared with you the methodology that we're going to use to identify these 6 cities that are Bilbao, Bordeaux, Hamburg, Rotterdam, Tallinn, and Copenhagen. So I'm not going to go through them due to the lack of time. However, we're going to submit this report to you, so we're gonna so you can go into detail and let us know if you have any comments. We're going to analyze these cities both for their qualitative characteristics and different aspects related to different modes of transport, and we're going to carry out quantitative analysis based on different available data sets to understand KPIs that can later be applied to the city of Mykolaiv. So I'm not going to go through again all these strategies of the type of data and how they would be mapped and compared with Mykolaiv. So I'm just gonna jump into the last part of the presentation. So we took Bilbao as one of the cities that has a remarkable city for transforming from an industrial city to an important cultural city of the world, especially due to the presence of the Guggenheim Museum. Bilbao port has implemented different strategies that can be interesting for Mykolaiv as well. We know that they are trying to invest more and more and try to increase the capacity of the rail connection to the port to decrease the road traffic. This applies to the intermodal corridor that connects Bilbao and Europe to UK. So this intermodal corridor includes rail and water, rather than relying on road traffic access for moving freight. They have an innovation research center within the port, research center hub within the port to work on issues such as logistic efficiency in operations and delivery, and digitalization and smart platforms for the port, providing environmental and energy sustainable solutions for the port, and increase the security issues of the port. Though another important city that we're going to study more in detail, but the city center of the Bordeaux is recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and the city in general is famous for all the investments that they do on urban regeneration projects and developing sustainable initiatives for their city. The port has a diversified network of multimodal transport options by land and the sea. There is the high-speed rail connection that connects the port to Paris. However, there are major highways as well connecting the port to the rest of the country. There are innovation projects implemented in the port to improve energy transition of the port, and the city applies different traffic limited zones criteria and to the ring roads as well as city center to ensure that the heavy traffic is deviated from the port area. Hamburg is the second largest port in Germany and one of the Europe's most important transport hubs. However, the city has a very well balanced of multimodal access for transport, including public transport, cycling, and walking, and ensures all these combines ensures the reduction of use of private transport within the city. The port management has a smart system that constantly provides real-time traffic information to truck drivers, ensuring that they find the best routes to avoid bottlenecks, congestions, and traffic. These are provided with LED monitors and panels provided at key locations for the truck drivers. There are several bridges that connect the port area to the rest of the city. Similar to Bordeaux here as well, there are several strategies to define low emission zones within the city center and traffic limited zones that limits the access of heavy trucks and vehicles to the port, to the city center area. Rotterdam is also the second largest port city in Netherlands. There is among one of the busiest and largest ports of the world, and similar to other cities of Netherlands, there is a high percentage of cycling infrastructure and pedestrian-friendly infrastructure, water transport options that provide combined options that encourage the use of discourage the use of vehicular traffic within the city. For the port area, a very important component for the port of Rotterdam is the presence of the rail freight system that ensures access within the to the port and between different port terminals that are quite elongated in the city. There is a new bridge and bypass plan. There are several low emission, zero emission areas planned within the city and streets that are limit the access of the trucks. Tallinn is a capital and largest city of Estonia, and it's considered again as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and cities working on promoting public transport, cycling, and sustainable transport, and trying to decrease the use of vehicular traffic. The port of Tallinn has a traffic management system that is automated and fastens the access to the old city harbor, which is located close to the city center. They are investing a lot on improving the rail connection to the port and trying to replace the rail traffic with vehicular traffic. Similar to other cities, there are several areas within the city center that are traffic limited zones, and they have limited access for the trucks. Copenhagen also as another city that we are going to study more in detail. We know that it has one of the most extensive cycling networks and has a city urban planning plans that is focused on sustainable solutions, including sustainable solutions for mobility. Access to the port is provided by a circular metro connection that ensures all the port area is accessible by public transport. In addition, Copenhagen Port opens some parts of the port for leisure activity, including swimming, reducing the impact of heavy industrial areas in the river, in this waterfront. Similar to other cities, there is the presence of quite heavy and extensive limited traffic zones that ensures that only certain vehicles can access city center and the rest is deviated from the city center. So very quickly, we're gonna look into how ports in different cities are accessed and how traffic is deviated from the city center. So starting from Bilbao, the port is accessible by railway and the bypass road that bypass highway that avoids the Bilbao city center and ensures that the traffic doesn't pass through the city center. Similar to Copenhagen, the entire city center is a traffic limited zone that doesn't allow trucks entering, especially the ones with lower than EU6, and there is only one road that allows this access to the port. As I mentioned, Tallinn is investing a lot on increasing the rail capacity and trying to deviate the traffic from road to rail. In case of Bordeaux, again, the highways avoid the city center and provide access to the port through the ring roads, and the extensive rail network ensures connection between the different port terminals. Hamburg is the same. Mainly the port area is located in the southern part of the city, a bit separated from the rest of the city, and there is the presence of the bypass road that connects the port to the rest of the country, and the heavy presence of rail network that ensure connection by the rail. Similar to the Rotterdam, that the port is quite far from the center, and the ones that are that access the center, the port, are the bypass roads that don't pass through the center. Again, there is the rail corridor and road corridor, southern sides of the all the extensive port area of Rotterdam that deviate traffic from the city center. So all of these are different strategies that can be considered and applied in Mykolaiv when we are going to look into more into detail into strategies and solutions. And that's it. That's the end of our presentation. Thank you very much for your time. I'm available if you have any questions or remark.
Thank you very much, Anaita, for the very complete analysis and presentation from Systematica's side. At this moment, we would like to open the floor. If there are any feedbacks, questions, or comments from the city mayor, as well as from the municipality technicians. I see that Yevgen has raised his hand. Yevgen, do you have a question?
Доброго дня, колеги.
Hello, dear colleagues. I will say shortly that indeed there are a lot of comments about cargo traffic and how to divert traffic from the city center. So I would like to see this presentation. Please send it to me, and I will send my comments in an email.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Hello all. First of all, like in 2017, Mykolaiv was the first Ukrainian city who decided to develop a mobility model of the city. Moreover, this work was done, and I think we need to find the results of this work and send it if it was not sent yet. Yevgen, was it sent? Yes, so you work with it.
Yes, I can confirm that with
our ideas. One of our ideas was to create a new transport model for public transport that will have short routes intersected, or let's say between each other, connected with some stops that will connect one to another. Using the electronic ticket, connect them and make that ticket to work by the time. So people will pay for the 1 hour trip and will be able to change the type of transport, like tram and bus and marshrutka, still while this time. And we have a technical assignment for the electronic ticket software, which will contain that information. After we will resolve this question about the mobility plan. And let's say the biggest problem now is a big traffic of heavy trucks in the city of Mykolaiv. And we haven't seen any information about Japanese bridge, JICA bridge, that they wanted. Maybe I missed it in the very beginning of this presentation. So there should be a circle road that will be give us ability to run all the transit transport around the city, but not through the city. And for sure, that bridge should be should be there in the master plan. And also, we also need to somehow develop those roads to the. Unfortunately, some of port zones are not in the center of the city, but in the area of the city. So we will need to provide those territories with like additional roads for the heavy traffic that we will do and that we already doing before the war that was planned in concrete, not the asphalt, but in concrete. And we also need to pay attention to these areas. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, Mr. Mayor. We are aware of the bridge alignments as well as of the bypass. You provided for us this information and we have it within the first analysis report. Systematica will take it into account when they go into the proposals from the beginning of September, as we are closing in on the analysis at the moment. Any other questions, feedbacks, comments?
I also want to thank you for this very well done job. And I also want to mention that Mykolaiv is totally an appropriate city for the bike drivers. So these people are now in the risk zone. So for sure, we need to improve that and to give them more. Moreover, we accepted an idea that every 5% of road reconstruction or road construction budget should be spent on the bike infrastructure, so bicycle infrastructure. So please keep that in mind while making decision about bicycle infrastructure in the city of Mykolaiv. Thank you.
Sure, thank you very much.
Any other comments or questions from the rest of the local participants? I see Yevgen has raised his hand again.
Так, якщо говорити про деталі, мабуть.
Yes, speaking about details, we forget the river transport. This is a very significant part of our transport system, and this is a constant question why we do not use river infrastructure. Thank you. I think during our previous discussion, we mentioned it in the opportunities.
Yes, I didn't mention in the presentation, but we saw the strategies that it's provided for the rolling on, rolling off system for the cargo for the port area. And in a separate map I showed, we also saw the possible water connections that were proposed. So yes, we have seen and we've taken these into considerations.
Again, Yevgen, please bear in mind that strategies for water transportation will be presented when we go into the proposal stage from Systematica side. From now, they have acknowledged your maritime strategy that was shared by Artem. So thank you very much for that information. Any further comments or questions?
Хотіла ще раз вам подякувати за презентацію.
I would also like to thank you for the presentation, and I would like to ask an organizational question. Can we post this presentation, or shall we wait for the modified, for the corrected presentation? So which variant can we publish?
Anaita will be sharing with your team the presentation that she showed today after the meeting. Feel free to use any of the graphical material to post in order to publicize the initiative. We would be waiting though for your comments regarding any text errors that there might be on the translation or regarding any technical integration that you would like for the Systematica team to make into the analysis. But for now, Tatiana, if you would like to share any of the maps or of the graphical elements that they put into the presentation with the public or with the city council members, you can feel free to do so.
Дякую.
Thank you very much. Understood.
Okay, since I see that we've gone a little bit over time for the translators, if there are no other comments or questions at the moment, I would call the meeting closure for today. And we'll be regrouping again on Monday for the milestone meeting of community engagement and stakeholder aspects.
Thank you very much. Arrivederci.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Have a good weekend. Stay safe and good work, everyone.
Nos vemos.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Buon fine settimana. Ci sentiamo.
Grazie, Gennady. Ciao.
Grazie.
Ciao.
Bye.